Greetings, everyone. My name is Shepard Smith, Head of Marketing here at Gravitate, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us. The topic of today's conversation is data analytics for IT professionals. And while we have a lot of ground to cover in the next 30 minutes, we welcome questions and invite you to submit them at any time using the written chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. We have two presenters today, Rob Miller and Matt Rohrer. Many of you might know Rob as president and co-founder of Avectra, the company that invented the modern AMS with the launch of NetForum. He has a unique perspective as a career association technologist who's also been on the other side of the fence as a senior association executive at Trade Association 340B Health. Matt Rohrer is a senior consultant here at Gravitate and also a career association technologist coming to us from Higher Logic and before that Community Brands. Rob, I will now turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you very much, Shepard, and welcome everyone. I'm very excited about this topic, data analytics for IT professionals, because as Shepard said, I'm a longtime technologist in the association space. I was a developer early in my career. And in fact, in my most recent job at 340B Health, I was actually giving SQL training to a number of the junior staff. So I like to stay connected to technology, and this is a very great topic. So as you can see, our philosophy is data analytics for everyone. And what that means to us is we want it to be very, very easy to use, so the data is accessible for everyone on your team, from the most junior membership coordinator all the way up to your executive team. But we also have a philosophy for the IT department, and those two important tenets are, number one, we want it to require virtually no IT support, and number two, we want it to be flexible and extensible. So how do we make it maintenance-free for IT professionals? Well, first of all, we built a turnkey solution. It's a SaaS, software as a service solution, something that many of you are very familiar with. In our case, it's hosted on the Amazon AWS cloud. And with most SaaS solutions, and in our case, it's updated continuously. So you do not have to worry about upgrades, maintenance, patches, or any of that type of thing. So we make it very, very easy. As I mentioned, we also have a second tenet, and that is flexibility and extensibility. First of all, as you can see from this picture on the screen, the system is very accessible to you and your team. It's built on a responsive design, so it can work on your mobile app, your tablet, or your desktop. And it's very flexible based on the way we structured it, so it can handle large amounts of structured and unstructured data sets. It's also very extensible, as we have a powerful RESTful API for integrations, which allow us to pull data into Nucleus from all your various source systems. And it also allows for systems tools such as Power BI or Tableau to actually access our data lake and get directly at the data. So let me talk to you a little bit about the architecture of the system. So first of all, we use a tool called MongoDB and JSON to import the data into the Mongo database and do some preliminary processing on it. And when we have it in a good state where we have all the data, we then push it into a big data technology called Hadoop. And there is where the real magic happens. So we have the data in Hadoop, and then we use a tool called Apache Spark to process, transform, and prepare the data for the front end. And then if we return to this visual here, so we pull in that data from the bottom, all those source systems into the data lake. And then once we have it all processed, we then make it available to all the front end tools. So first of all, on the far left, you'll see that through the API, we access the data and present visualizations in our Nucleus front end. On the far right side, as I said, you can also access the system through tools like Power BI and Tableau. And again, you would be using the same Nucleus API that our core visualizations do. And then finally, one of the things that's really special about Nucleus is that we can also embed visualizations in your website and in your mobile apps. And so again, that data would be coming through the API right directly to the data lake. But that's a real special feature because there's no additional licensing fees to be able to project that information out to your members and other stakeholders. Obviously, we have to get data, and as I mentioned, we ingest data from many popular industry solutions, many of which you probably are running at your organization. You probably recognize a lot of them. A lot of AMS, a lot of e-marketing, Google Analytics, survey tools. If you don't see yours listed here, we may have already built it, but if we haven't, we have a very smart group of technical people who will add a new integration so we can access all your data and blend it together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt Rohr, who will be talking about some interesting paradigm shifts as it relates to data analytics. He'll also be talking about the importance of making the tool set available for everyone, and then he will be showing a couple of technology examples. Matt, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. And just to verify, Rob, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so thanks. And my name is Matt Rohr. I've been working with Association Technology for about 15 years, and just right alongside with Rob, seen a lot of changes in things. So in this presentation, I wanted to give you 5 trends that I can see recently kind of changing the way that IT professionals think about and work with data analytics. Each one of these really represents kind of a new perspective or a paradigm shift, and perhaps will kind of help bring some changes to your organization too. So let's start with this. And the first one that I wanted to talk about was that analytics can be a small project. And so this has only taken place in recent years, that this can be potentially a small and fast project. So not too long ago, if you wanted to implement your own data lake or data warehouse, build your own custom visualizations, we're looking at really a multi-year project, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases millions of dollars. There was a time that was true, and it's just not true anymore. Gravitate's been at the forefront of changing this, but nevertheless, it's been one of the reasons that medium-sized organizations often still don't have good analytics, is that this paradigm is still kind of in people's heads that this is a huge project, and we have so much to think about there. Hey, so you know what? Let's just fix the website first, right? So it's one of the very visible piece. So let's do that. And instead, it kind of cripples organizations, right? So this being locked into this old paradigm, because they continue to cobble together various reports from siloed data sources, and have staff spend hours massaging the data, getting it ready to be presented. And so now analytics can be done in bite-sized chunks. And Nucleus is a subscription-based solution that has a baseline. And so you can begin using it in weeks, not years. And just so as kind of a basic example of this, I'll just bring up a couple of the screens here that show a baseline membership visualization. We have baseline wrapped around all of the major parts of your business. So membership, events, community, there's a number of them, product sales. There's a lot of these that you can use, and they're just basically ready to go. One of the biggest reasons why this hasn't been available in the past is really that it's so complex behind the scenes. It's admittedly a complex problem to solve. The source systems of the data are going to be different for each customer, right? Different AMS systems, different event systems, calendar membership versus anniversary membership. They're going to have different types of visualizations. All of this, it's so different. Previously, we would view this as really a custom project that just takes a lot of time. And so what Gravitate has done is invested a lot of time in creating the back-end connectors for those typical systems, what Rob talked about, and a processing pipeline that builds it all back together again. So organizations can take advantage of that. The other piece to this, and I'll dig into this just a little bit here, there's so much back here, I won't spend a lot of time going through this, but even just the basics of showing members across your different member types. And so any organization, any association is going to have the different member types, and we're going to be able to see those. Of course, your member types flow in here, but more than that, your custom demographics would be able to flow in here. So here on the baseline piece, there are a couple that are going to apply to almost everyone, but then through the API, your individual demographics are going to be able to show here. So I could say, maybe I want to see how many millennials are across my different member groups, or maybe tenure, right? I want to see those in that that volatile first 4 years of membership, and I want to dig into that data now through that and export that data. So there's a lot you can do, and it's a baseline offering, and so that's the unique thing that now we've kind of solved this problem, right? To get that. So that's the first and the biggest paradigm shift. I was talking to a customer just recently, and he said the baseline cards and carousels are fantastic, and I said, hey, I'm doing a webinar next week. Can I use that? Can I use that quote? So we have our customers really love that. He also said the fact that we can roll out one package at a time is really the perfect way to introduce Nucleus to their staff, and so he was really excited about that. The fact that they could say, hey, we just want to do this for the events group or membership. We have some groups who take up the whole, everything and just do everything all at once. That's fine too, but you can stick your toe in the water, and it's something that previously has really not been available with data analytics. All right, let's keep moving here. The next one that I wanted to kind of point out that really represents a big change, and Rob touched on this earlier, and I'm just going to dig into it just a little bit further, is that it's really a game changer. It's the idea that analytics should be for everyone. So Nucleus has been at the forefront of this movement because our licensing model allows you to deliver value across the organization, even outside your organization in strategic ways. So previously, the paradigm was that executives need to see the numbers, the board needs their reports, everyone else just keep your head down and do your part, right? What a motivational killer, right? Nucleus is really breaking that paradigm in several ways, and allowing people at all levels to be vested in the organization, to get to the data easily, and to be motivated. So 2 quick examples of this. The first one is with sales support. We have customers who allow their chapter leaders to compare the success of their chapter's registration goals across and against other chapters. So it provides a little friendly competition and a sense of connection to the greater cause. So the example of this, our customer IPA is finding a lot of success. Andrew Thomas, the director of marketing and communication, said before Nucleus, we had no way to share progress towards organizational goals in real time to our staff and 21 chapter leaders. IPA is cultivating a fun, competitive culture that allows us to celebrate achievement together. So, how does that affect you? This is a marketing guy, but how does that affect you as an IT professional? Well, you may be spending a lot of time and effort to manually building and distributing the current information to staff and chapters, perhaps. Or the executives may be asking for this type of thing, and your current platform can't really deliver that automatically. And so Nucleus offers a great solution for this, and I wanted to point that out. The other example with analytics for everyone, this idea, this movement of democratizing data is benchmarking. So this is where individuals want to compare their professional qualifications against others, or companies. For trade organizations, certainly, maybe they want to compare offerings or compare themselves to industry averages, those sorts of things. So all of that is possible with this idea of allowing the data to be exposed both internally, but strategically externally as well. I spoke to several folks at ASE Annual this past week who were running into these technical roadblocks with their current analytics tools. They wanted to do this. They had to offer, they wanted to offer member benefits to allow members to see the industry information, and we're kind of running into those roadblocks. Usually it's a licensing thing for a lot of platforms to allow access beyond your organization walls. It's a licensing kind of a roadblock that Nucleus doesn't have. And so here's an example of that. For instance, one of our customers that allows their professional members to compare their education, adherence to industry standards to other members. And it shows them how they stack up. It gives them some guidance on where they can improve. At the end of the day, it usually also has the effect of drawing them to more activity in various ways, right? So it does end up increasing revenue. So at Gravitate, we say analytics for everyone. We're a part of that movement. And those are kind of the first two things. So it can be a small project. It can be deployed across your staff and even to members strategically. The other piece that I think is also a really big shift in the way people are thinking about data and data analytics is this idea of automated blending. And we have many systems that we integrate with. As Rob showed, you probably have a handful of systems that are there, and a best in breed type of approach is really great. But if you're the person who has to create the report from all that data, then the best of breed approach can be a nightmare, right? Because you've got all these systems, even the integrated ones in terms of SSO and making sure that the members can connect. Now, if your job is to then bring all that together, wow, that's that can be a nightmare. So I spoke with a customer recently who shared this story, and I'll just relay this to you guys. They said our biggest reason for investing in Nucleus was event reporting. So they had 3 large events each year, and reporting has always been a nightmare. Each of the 3 events has a unique setup and registration, so each required custom reporting. And we'd have to pull multiple reports from the database and merge the data manually. And this would inevitably result in errors, so our reporting process was slow, painful, and sadly often inaccurate. And so with Nucleus reporting, it's almost real time, and the data picture is accurate. So I wanted to relay that. I love hearing that, and certainly as IT professionals, our job is to kind of keep this best in breed thing going. It's great, but now to bring that all back together in a meaningful way, tools like Nucleus can really alleviate the struggle for the analyst, for the report developer, and really free up your time to work on more exciting and strategic projects than just meshing the data together every year, every time a report an event happens. So this idea of automated blending data is really big, and all that happens kind of behind the scenes. I don't necessarily have a lot to show you from this, although I do have an example here coming up with another point that will kind of demonstrate this blending data. But a lot of this is happening behind the scenes, and really Gravitate is kind of taking care of that for you. Oh, here, I guess I did have a slide for it. There you go. So I didn't advance fast enough there. So multiple systems there, but this idea of it, it's automated now. You don't have to manually extract and blend that. Let's have a tool do that for us. All right, here's the next one. Another paradigm shift is this ability to use your favorite tool. So I already mentioned how we have a baseline offering, but IT professionals sometimes like to experiment and build, right? It's what makes the job fun. Previously, let me make sure I'm on the slide here. So the shift here, so previously, if you were an expert in one analytics tool and then were hired by an organization that uses a different tool, you have to switch over. You've got to learn that tool now. And that's actually true still in most cases. With Nucleus, though, our platform is REST API based, and we give you the option to use the tool that you're most comfortable with. Are you a Tableau expert? Cool. Love Power BI? Awesome. Let me show you how this works in one example. So I just brought up Power BI as an example. And these two very simple charts that I just created are pulling from the Nucleus data lake and the data model there. So it could come from various sources, but it just kind of shows you that you can bring that in. If I go to my recent sources here, if you were going to connect to Nucleus for the first time through Power BI, you would get data, you would connect to that the Nucleus connector, and it would show you a similar setup, right? So here's a customer, and you can see both the blended data, but also the raw data sources. So here's their AMS, their community, their continuing education platform, all the platforms they have. Now, what I'm going to do, most of your reports would still be based on the blended data, because that's really, as I mentioned, that's the big benefit of doing this, is that you're connecting it all back together. Now I'm going to pull this off screen just for a second, so I'm not showing anything that I shouldn't here. But what I'm going to do is go back. So this is seems to be a GoToWebinar attendee data, right? And so you have all the GoToWebinar stuff, when they logged in, when they logged out. But here's the cool part, right? So notice this: for each one of these attendees, I also get their length of membership. I get gender, I get member type, all this different stuff that, hey, wait a minute, that's not in GoToWebinar. How would we possibly have that data blended together? Well, this is that great example of using that data that's blended, and now I can bring that right into Power BI, and it's a great tool there. So just wanted to show you that. Certainly works with Tableau. We've got a great Tableau connector as well. You can get to the raw data, you can get to the blended data, and use your favorite tool. So it's again a great little paradigm shift there that that we see, where you can kind of bring your expertise to the field. All right. The last one here that I wanted to talk about is this idea of real time or near real time is probably the best way to say it, updates. This is really cool because the traditional school of thought has been that, well, you have your transactional system, right? And then you have your data warehouse that gets refreshed with data at probably 3 a.m. on each Saturday, or worse, once every 2 weeks possibly. And previously, this was the only way to do it. And because real-time updates were just not practical with all the aggregation and increasing demand for data, it would really slow or crash a system, as workloads compete for storage and computing resources for all the traditional, from a traditional data warehouse that would not be typically feasible. So at Gravitate, we kind of take advantage of a couple things here, and the architecture that Rob mentioned earlier, all the big data technology, just kind of blew this apart, right? So in a good way. The processing speed is amazing. They're really not data warehouses. It's a different approach, and it gives us the ability to use APIs whenever possible. So if a new member joins, that little update gets pushed into the Nucleus data lake, which triggers an update in the visualization in minutes, not days or weeks. So this is big, and it's really big. Just another example I'll bring up for one of our visualizations. A lot of them are goals based, and this is a great thing for groups that want to compare. Let's say that just a very simple comparison that would ordinarily be difficult to kind of find, but now you've got our current members and our goal for this year, and then our percent to goal. So you can see that. Now the nice thing about this isn't data from 2 weeks ago. This is real-time data. So if somebody just joined, and I would love that to happen like right now while I'm on the webinar, it probably won't, but we would see that number go up, and it would be a great thing where you can look at it on your phone at any time and just see what the current data is. So those real-time or near real-time updates has been a big shift in how people think about and how people are able to use properly the data warehouse. All right, well, that's that's kind of the summary. And actually, when I sat down to kind of write this up, I actually came up with about 10 different things that are really changing in this industry. I knew for the sake of time, I only picked out these 5, so maybe I'll do a sequel to this and come up with those other ones. So some of the other topics that we could definitely cover are predictive analytics, right? So I can see what happened yesterday, but what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Nucleus does some great things with that. Sentiment analysis. A lot of great things happening there. So I'll save those for next time, but for now, just remember, this can be a small project. You can put your toe in the water without a huge investment. Our idea is to have this data available across the organization and strategically even outside. There's some great revenue possibilities available there. If you're manually blending your data, stop doing that. That's painful. Use your favorite tools. Keep an eye open for real-time updates. Keep that as the mark there. So I hope that was helpful and kind of gives you a vision for how things are changing and how Gravitate is kind of at the forefront of this. So with that, I will turn it back to Shepard.
Matt, many thanks, and everyone. This is a time to add questions if you haven't yet. We've gotten several already. Matt, the first question is, our data has a lot of inconsistencies. Should we fix those first before we deploy a data analytics tool?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, clean data obviously is a foundation, right? It's really getting the right information. You've got to have that clean data. But I would say that it doesn't necessarily mean that you should wait for tools like this. Data cleanup is best viewed as an ongoing effort instead of a destination you've arrived at. So the minute you think you've arrived, some goofball is going to go to the website and add a duplicate record with, in the system with his personal email address, right? And so the key is for clean data is really having checks in place to catch these anomalies quickly, and then allocating the time, just a reoccurring time to deal with data cleansing. Now, Nucleus can actually help with that. So we've had a number of customers who have implemented Nucleus, and based on that, in some of the charts, it makes it very obvious that there's certain parts of it that are, this is dirty data. So it helps them, it actually helped them identify it and deal with it, and it becomes an ongoing thing. So yes, very important, clean data. No, you don't have to wait. In fact, I would say use a tool like this to help in that.
Thank you, Matt. A second question, we are preparing to change our learning management system provider. How would this affect a data analytics project?
Yeah, so anytime you switch systems, there's going to be a need to connect that to both the data lake and then also the visualizations. So when you move off of a provider, one of the things you should consider is that you still want to be able to see historic data. So for an LMS like what you mentioned, you'll still want to see, after you leave that other vendor, students' data for the past years and maybe compare it to this next year's results. So to do that, definitely archive that data, put it in the data lake so you can see what the historical information is. And that way, when you get your new system, there's a little bit of work to connect that new system, but then once it's connected, then you can compare it right alongside that old data. So it can be very useful with that.
All right, Matt, many thanks. We've got about 1 minute left. Let's keep people on schedule, but the last question we'll squeeze in. What if I want to use a tool other than Power BI or Tableau? Is that possible?
Yes, it is possible. So like I said, your favorite tool now, I want to make sure that, not every tool have we created a connector for. Our RESTful API makes it flexible and accessible. So it means most modern tools are going to be able to connect to the data lake. However, we don't have a pre-built API for every tool. Just reach out to me maybe afterwards, and I'll let you know if we have one for whichever tool that this gentleman's using. But we can certainly talk about it. I know the R&D department is right now working on even another one, so perhaps that's even on the roadmap.
Great, thanks, Matt. Well, that'll be the end of our questions. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. We hope you found the content and the demo informative. And as with all webinars, we have recorded this session and we'll send it to you shortly. Please feel free to share with your colleagues at your organization. And please visit our website where we have our blogs. We have a relatively recent blog on member-facing analytics, which we think you'd find interesting. And finally, please let your government relations and advocacy teams know that we'll be conducting a webinar on analytics for them on September 4th at 1 p.m. And finally, thank you again and have a wonderful day.